All new at 6 o'clock, Berkeley handing over a small stretch of land to a major pharmaceutical company. And now, questions about what that means for the unhoused people living on that street.
I think it's more so that we're isolated. Because people don't like looking at the trash and looking at the people and looking at us doing whatever we're doing over here.
Why some advocates say the move will only create new problems for the city. Plus, that massive earthquake in Russia did not send any towering tsunami waves our way, but the Bay Area did see some swells.
Definitely there's a tidal surge that's not normal.
We'll look at the impacts around the region. And it's not tsunamis that have a tiny North Bay town worried about flooding.
This new 4.5-foot rise of water would be in my backyard.
Why neighbors are fighting back against a plan to expand a nearby reservoir.
Got him. Hiya.
And later, we'll meet the South Bay tennis coach putting a unique spin on the sport after a devastating injury.
It happened, and I just gotta, live with it.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Juliette Goodrich.
Good evening. People living at large homeless encampments in Berkeley are pretty worried that they're about to get kicked out. The city is giving away the land to one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies. So the encampment butts up against the sprawling campus of the Bayer Corporation, which has operated in Berkeley for half a century. Bayer already owns just over 2 million square feet on Berkeley's west side, and that includes part of Carlton Street. So now the city plans to hand over a nearly 400-foot stretch of Carlton between 7th Street and the existing Bayer campus. Our Katie Nielsen spoke with some unhoused residents just waiting to see what that means for their future.
This is the portion of Carlton Street the city of Berkeley is giving to Bayer Pharmaceuticals. It's about 28,000 square feet in all and home to a sizable encampment. Now, lots of questions remain about when this encampment will be cleared.
And I'm a treasure hunter, and I found some amazing things.
This is Cowboy, and this is his outdoor thrift store on Carlton Street, right up against the wall of Bayer Pharmaceuticals' Berkeley campus.
I just give things away to people that can't afford them, and the things that people that can't afford them, I charge them a real modest or even lower than modest price.
He's one of the unhoused residents living in the stretch of Carlton Street that last night the Berkeley City Council decided to give to Bayer, a portion of road that dead ends into Bayer's campus with Bayer-owned buildings on both sides. At a meeting last week when the transfer of the land was first discussed, a city staffer explained how the encampment will be handled.
We would, have staff go out and talk with people to the extent we had shelter. To the extent that we have shelter opportunity, we would offer that, and to the extent we don't, we don't.
The Bayer campus in Berkeley is 46 acres in all and is home to research labs as well as manufacturing facilities, mostly for specialty medications. The pharmaceutical giant sent a representative to last week's council meeting.
We have reported multiple fires at this location. I also need to make sure that there is a safe place for our people to work and that we can maintain the safety of the medicines that we produce for people.
I think it's more so that we're isolated. Because people don't like looking at the trash and looking at the people and looking at us doing whatever we're doing over here.
Jasmine says the clearing of the encampment only moves the problem elsewhere and doesn't do anything to actually address the homelessness crisis. While Cowboy says he'll be left to figure out what to do with his outdoor market.
I don't know. It came here little by little over a course of 7-8 months via bike. So where there's a will, there's a way.
We reached out to Bayer Pharmaceuticals with questions about this, and what they told us is that they are actually the ones that requested to take over ownership and maintenance of Carlton Street. They've done it on other streets that dead end into their campus and thought that would be the most efficient and safe way of dealing with this encampment. As far as timelines go, when this could be cleared, that we still don't know.
And we also reached out to the Berkeley mayor's office and the city manager's office to get more details about how and when the encampment could be cleared and who would be responsible for it. No one responded to our requests. All right, now to the fallout from the magnitude 8.8 earthquake that rocked eastern Russia last night and put the entire California coastline under a tsunami advisory. It was lifted for the Bay Area this morning. It took about 8 hours for the ripple effects to reach our coast, and thankfully, we have not seen any significant damage. But boaters in Santa Cruz who've seen destructive tsunami surges in the past were not taking any chances. We sent our Len Ramirez there today to check out the aftermath.
Unusual currents are still working their way around the Santa Cruz harbor this afternoon. We've seen the water get pulled back to the ocean and then come surging back in. Not enough to cause any major damage, but enough to become a spectacle. And last night there was some concern about boats being in the harbor, possibly getting damaged by what was happening. And so we spoke with a fisherman who did evacuate the harbor last night just as he was returning back to the docks this afternoon.
Where my boat lives in the North Harbor, there's a bottleneck, so it gets pretty narrow, so you get too much water being constricted, and that's where all the damage happens in the past. So I just figured it would make sense just to move it, just to be safe.
The first tsunami surge rolled in around 1 in the morning. No major impacts, but the harbor did not escape damage completely. A small work platform boat was partially swamped and had to be hauled out. And a water pipeline near the harbor mouth also broke and is now under repair. So we saw some bigger waves in Half Moon Bay overnight. You can watch the boats across the bottom of the screen there. You can see them kind of rising and falling in front of the dock. There you go, a little bit subtle there. This afternoon, there were still signs in Pacifica saying beaches and parking lots were closed, even after the advisory was lifted. But they didn't deter people from getting in the water. We spoke to visitors about the conditions, and they told us they knew about the advisory, but hey, they figured the threat had passed.
I got it from a text message from my friend, and I saw it like all over TikTok as well.
I was watching the news with my mom, and then a couple of my group chats were like blowing up, so a lot of people were sending texts. Everyone's just checking in with each other.
I mean, it came through, right? Didn't it? It came through about 1 foot. 1 in the morning is my understanding. There's not too many other kids out here playing right now, but I feel okay.
I'm so glad he was watching news with his mom. That's so heartwarming. Earlier, I spoke with UC Berkeley seismologist and tsunami scientist Dr. Amy Williamson about the heads up we got long before these waves reached the Bay Area coastline. Do you think the warning system worked well? We had plenty of lead time between the earthquake and tsunami. So is there a type of earthquake that would concern you that had less warning time, possibly?
Yeah, I think this event had a lot of warning, and part of the reason is because that source is so far away up in the far northwest Pacific, and that gives scientists a lot of time to look at that data and really refine forecasts for the Bay Area. Of course, for events that are closer, people still, it's their job to look at these events and provide warnings as quick as possible. But then often in those cases, you're working with a lot less data to provide those alerts. So this one really gave us both the information and the time.
The northern part of California's coast saw some of the highest waves from the tsunami. This is a live look at the harbor in Crescent City in Del Norte County. It was one of the areas that state officials were most concerned about. Waves there maxed out at 8 feet this morning. There were reports of a deck breaking off, but no major damage or flooding in the city center. So it's a good time to bring in Chief Meteorologist Paul Hagan with a closer look at how the tsunami impacted the waves here.
Yeah, things kind of conform to what the Tsunami Warning Center was talking about. The maximum wave heights were generally around a foot or lower than that, just barely over a foot officially in San Francisco for the tallest waves associated with that tsunami just after midnight last night. The highest waves overall where the landscape is just a little more exposed to the waves coming in from the Pacific, just over 2.5 feet for the high tsunami waves around Point Reyes. Farther to the north, still a tsunami advisory that is in effect. So let's take a look at the big picture map here. And we do have that tsunami advisory still in effect around Crescent City because the waves are still coming in, the water pulling out and surging back in, the waves gradually decreasing in intensity, but still something they're going to be monitoring over the next day or two. For the Bay Area, the tsunami advisory was canceled this morning, replaced with a beach hazard statement, which means pay attention. It's not the time to be heading out in any kind of small craft, or certainly not out for a swim, because we still have dangerous currents. Water conditions are still going to be something that have to be evaluated, even though the immediate threat of that tsunami has now passed. We're going to keep you updated on that as we head into the upcoming first weekend of August. We'll take a look at the weather situation for the upcoming weekend. That's coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Paul, thank you. And we will have continuing coverage of the historic earthquake, plus all the impacts on the Bay Area coastline and beyond. Just head to KPIX.com. Neighbors in one Marin County community say they're worried about flooding, but not from any tsunami. We're talking about Nicasio, an unincorporated town. It's about 7 miles west of Novato. It also sits right below Nicasio Reservoir. The Marin Municipal Water District thinks it has a good idea to increase the reservoir's storage. But those living nearby told our John Ramos the plan will put them underwater.
Nicasio Reservoir is an important water supply for West Marin County, and the Water District is looking for ways to increase its capacity for times of drought in the future. But residents living near here say the district needs to pay more attention to what's going on in the present.
Nicasio Reservoir looks nearly full now, but in 2021, this is what it looked like. The Marin Municipal Water District says it was within months of running dry, and they're not forgetting that just because we've had a few wet years.
That rainfall pattern is changing. The storms can be more intense, the storms can be more infrequent, and they're just becoming a little bit more unpredictable in nature.
So the district wants to raise the lake by adding an inflatable gate at the top of the existing dam. It would raise the water level by about 4.5 feet and add about 3,700 acre feet to the supply. But neighbors who live nearby and don't get any water from the reservoir say they will be the ones paying the price for it. And it centers around Nicasio Elementary School. This is what the creek looked like during a rainstorm last year, with a roaring river just across the fence and water backing up into the playground.
We're calling it ground zero because this is where you see impact, and as you go through the neighboring homes back towards the east side of Nicasio Creek, you'll see continued implications of the flooding.
Mike Siebold lives in one of those homes.
Well, currently of February 2025, we had a major flood of water that came through, flooded out 3/4 of my property. Washed away a whole bunch of trees, washed away more land into the creek. My backyard's on their plan of inundation. With this new 4.5-foot rise of water would be in my backyard.
On this day, he and other residents were at the library researching MMWD's history with the reservoir. It was constructed in 1961, and for the first 25 years, the district dredged the creek to remove sediment that was deposited when the flowing water hit the reservoir. But the residents say they stopped doing that in about 1987.
Now we're at a point that the creek bed is completely filled up with gravel, and when we get high rainfall events, there's nowhere for the water to go. It runs into the existing reservoir level and stops and spreads out and floods the school ground.
So the people living near the reservoir are staging a minor uprising, campaigning against the plan that they say could put their doorsteps on the edge of a lake.
I think they're listening, but the most important reaction is, we didn't know, which tells me that they really hadn't done as much of the homework ahead of announcing that they wanted to move forward with this project.
The neighbors say the district considered a nearly identical plan back in 1980, but it was abandoned because of the threat of flooding. They're wondering why it's being considered now, when the current flooding problems have only gotten worse.
So the Water District did not respond to our request for comment today. The project's public comment period is scheduled to end next Tuesday, August 4th. Still ahead here at 6, what we're learning about the disturbing allegations against the co-pilot arrested at SFO as he makes his first court appearance. Plus, we'll meet the South Bay tennis team overcoming disability to take over the court on wheels.
I like to challenge myself athletically, so that's the fun part is the challenge of it.
The Delta pilot arrested at SFO on child sex abuse charges faced a judge today in Contra Costa County. 34-year-old Rustam Bagwagar appeared in court along with a 45-year-old female suspect. Both suspects are facing 24 identical felony charges, and that could bring a sentence of 15 years to life. The suspect was then taken off the plane in handcuffs after landing at SFO Saturday night. The Contra Costa County DA's office says the sex crimes were committed in the county between 2018 and 2023. We're not naming the second suspect to protect the identity of the alleged victim, who is a minor.
And obviously, this is a tough place to be in, and we want to make sure we do everything to protect our identity now and going forward.
The suspects are scheduled to return to court for arraignment on August 19th. The DA's office says there is not currently any evidence that other victims were involved. July is Disability Pride Month, and this evening we are bringing you a story of resilience, passion, and the power of sports. A San Jose man is changing the game literally through wheelchair tennis. Arlen Ramirez introduces us to a coach who's helping athletes redefine what is possible with their bodies.
On the courts of Independence High School in San Jose, the rhythm of the game is unmistakable. But look closer and you'll see a different kind of tennis match. Meet Dawn Bearden, one of the founding members of Bay Area wheelchair tennis and a coach with a story that took a turn at just 10 years old when a gymnastics accident left him paralyzed.
I'm pretty used to this life, so I really don't have anything to regret, at this point, because it happened, and I just gotta, live with it, So it's been a pretty decent life, I would say. Got him. Oh yeah.
Today, Don not only coaches wheelchair tennis, he plays at a high level, competing in tournaments around the world. His teammates, Dan Ignacio, who was born with spina bifida, and Anil Pakina, paralyzed after contracting polio.
I like to challenge myself athletically, so that's the fun part is the challenge of it.
Wheelchair tennis follows most of the same rules as traditional tennis, with one key difference. Players are allowed 2 bounces of the ball on their side of the court. It's a fast-paced game that requires skill, strength, and strategy. Don explains how staying strapped tightly into the chair helps him maneuver quickly and hit with power.
You want it to be very, back, strapped in very tightly. So any movement, chair comes with you. Yeah, so it's very important.
Students, high school students? The Independence High School tennis coach even brings his players out to train with Don and his team, a collaboration that benefits everyone on the court. Kylie Hornbeck, a former intercollegiate tennis player and also the group's co-founder and coordinator, says it's a small group that wants to grow.
We strive to bring community for everyone. People can learn from each other related to tennis and other things about just getting out and living their life after a disability.
As for Dawn Bearden, the game shows no sign of slowing down.
Oh, yeah.
And he's proving that passion moves you forward and showing that strength isn't always about standing. It's about rising in any way you can.
Wow. If you are interested in joining up with the Bay Area Wheelchair Tennis, they meet every Saturday at 10 a.m. at Independence High School in San Jose. All right, coming up, it hasn't felt like summer at all the past few weeks, but that could soon be changing. Paul will be right back with the timing. Animals were also looking for safety after that earthquake shook Russia yesterday. Look at this. A tourist sailing past cliffs off the coast of Russia's peninsula caught sight of some large boulders just rolling down the cliff into the ocean. The crashing sounds and moving earth seemed to startle a nearby nest of sea lions who then just dove into the ocean. Look at that.
Pretty good idea.
Oh, that was probably the safest spot for them, huh?
Yeah, until the tsunami arrived.
Well, that's true,
Yeah.
but they could probably ride that.
Yeah, just get back on the rocks that way.
Yeah, because we know.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I'm glad all is calm, though. Put it that way.
Yeah, that could have been a much more serious situation than it
Yeah.
ended up being. And people kind of get confused and think like, okay, it was an 8.8 earthquake. We had much worse impacts from a 9.1 earthquake back in 2011. Those sound pretty similar. 9.1 is actually 3 times stronger than an 8.8 earthquake. It's just a different kind of scale, the way we measure things.
Yeah, but we should heed the warnings like everyone
Yes.
did.
That was,
And then wake up the next day and go, okay.
yeah, no fatalities anywhere.
Yes.
So that's
remarkable.
fantastic. That's the system working the way it should. Let's take a look at what's going to happen weather-wise. And our weather has been kind of also working the way it should. The no sky July conditions is sticking around. You see all of that fog hugging the coast and remaining pretty stubborn over San Francisco and much of the Bay throughout today. And more thunderstorms bubbling up in the Sierra throughout the day as well. More cloud to ground lightning strikes which of course we're going to have to monitor for the potential of some holdover fires over the next couple of days. In general, though, it's been the same story throughout the month of July. Here's a look at the calendar for the month of July. And again, tomorrow is the last day of the month, but it's going to go into the record books as chillier than normal. In fact, in San Francisco, literally one day this entire month, that was on July 10th, had above average high temperatures. And it was well above average, reaching up to 11 degrees above normal. That put us up into the upper 70s. But otherwise, the best we could do, the 5 days that had exactly normal high temperatures. Every other day, 24 out of 30 so far, had below average high temperatures. But despite that, it's only the 50th coldest July on record in San Francisco. There have been months, a lot of them, dating back to 1850, that have been a lot chillier, but not many that have been wetter. So far this month, we have registered a whopping 0.08 inches of moisture. Hard to call it actual rain. It's more just intense drizzle, but it's fallen on a few different days. And in fact, we are tied with 2022, just 3 years ago, for the most rainy or at least measurable moisture days in the month of July. Looking outside right now from Mount Diablo, and you can see that fog and cloud cover in the distance. Temperatures are still cool for late July, anywhere from 60 downtown to 75 degrees in Santa Rosa. 74 degrees in Concord is the other least cool spot on the map. And as we head through the rest of tonight, the fog is once again going to spread out to a pretty good extent, making a big inland push. But once the sun comes up tomorrow morning, that fog will not take too long to retreat from the inland valleys, making it back to the coast as we head towards about lunchtime tomorrow. And temperatures tomorrow are going to take a step up away from the water. Let's take a look at the forecast high temperatures for tomorrow. And we are going to see more of a warm up, especially inland, with temperatures returning to at least within shouting distance of what's normal for this time of year, which means a mix of upper 70s and low to mid 80s in the Santa Clara Valley, returning to the 80s and even a couple of 90-degree readings east of the Oakland Hills, around 90 degrees near Antioch and Brentwood. Mix of 60s and 70s around the bay with 60s at the coast, and mostly in the 80s for the North Bay, even all the way up to 91 degrees around Healdsburg by tomorrow afternoon. So it is going to be a little bit toastier in the dog walking forecast. We have an adoptable dog in the dog walking forecast. This is Chance. Don't let the skeptical look fool you. He's just evaluating potential forever families. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a link up on social media right after this weathercast. As the temperatures start to build, afternoons are the time of day to avoid for dog walking purposes as we get closer and closer to the first weekend in August. And that first weekend in August does bring a return to closer to normal temperatures inland. That means mid to upper 80s, with temperatures even hitting the low 90s by Tuesday and Wednesday of next week for the first time in a while, seeing more widespread 90s on the map, again, away from the water. But the warm-up will be noticeable around the bay, climbing up a little bit farther into the 70s by Tuesday and Wednesday, with more and more sunshine and less cloud cover. And that even applies to the coast. You're going to still have no sky July, giving way to foggust weather as we head into the first weekend. But temperatures by the beginning of next week, rather, are going to be getting up into the mid-60s by Tuesday and Wednesday. Jules?
Paul, thanks. And when we come back, Southwest Airlines brews up a new partnership with a Bay Area coffee brand. A Bay Area coffee brand is taking to the skies as Southwest Airlines' official coffee provider. Pete's Coffee, founded in Berkeley, will debut its off-the-grid blend on all Southwest flights starting on August 13th. It's a medium roast with coffee beans from Colombia and El Salvador, and it is Pete's first ever collab with an airline. All right, good job. CBS Evening News is next. We'll see you in 30 minutes at 7 o'clock with more local news just for you.